I'm Anna Webb. Welcome to A Dog's Life. Hey, Mr. Binks, you know how I'm always talking about the cruelty of puppy farms and how many of them are based in Ireland. Well, that's why we're jumping on Zoom now to speak to John O'Callaghan, who has launched Dog Advocacy Ireland. John O'Callaghan, gosh, how happy am I that you're on A Dog's Life?
Hi, Anna. I must say thank you kindly for inviting me to participate in A Dog's Life. I've just checked there before we were speaking, and you've done over 150 podcasts. So as a newbie in the area of dog welfare, I feel extremely privileged, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure. And, you're not really, I wouldn't say you were a newbie. Really, hey, John, because you've been a dog owner all your life, have you not?
Well, most of, yes, Anna.
And been really aware of, so obviously, I think the clue is in your wonderful voice, as you are near Dublin, I think, and I'm in London. And this is what we're talking about, really, isn't it? The welfare of dogs and all animals in Ireland.
It's the very reason why I had the idea about 3 years ago to form this organisation, Dog Advocacy Ireland. I know it's a mouthful, but it is what it says on the tin. And if you don't mind, I'd like to get in a plug for the website straight away. And I hope to do so over the course of this interview to remind people that it's dogadvocacyireland.ie. It's important that people log on to that website and to register their support of the aims of Dog Advocacy Ireland.
So what are the aims, John? So the website's brilliant, and the link will be in the show notes, John, forever. And it's free, isn't it, just to sign up and show your support for what is... Well, explain what Dog Advocacy Ireland is, John, because this is your baby, if you like.
Well, the reason for forming the organisation, Anna, is to address the appalling shambolic governance of dog/animal welfare in Ireland. And, I'm being critical, but I need to be critical because the governance, administration and enforcement of dog/animal welfare in Ireland is actually strewn across 3 government departments. And as if that wasn't chaotic enough, we then have one of those departments which delegates responsibility for dog breeding establishments and the Control of Dogs Act to all local authorities, of which there are 31 in Ireland. So if you can imagine that if everybody's looking after it and nobody's looking after it, that's the reality of dog/animal welfare in Ireland. It is shambolic.
So you're basically saying, that the parliamentary structure in Ireland, is a bit shambolic, with the welfare of animals being, split between 3 departments, neither of whom really communicate particularly well with each other, which therefore allows this kind of natural loophole for a lot of cruelty and neglect to happen.
Yes, and it's not by coincidence that Ireland has this unenviable reputation as puppy farm capital of Europe. I mean, it's shameful. And, it's because of the lack of governance and the lack of enforcement of existing legislation, which, by the way, is quite good. But, it's, in my view, it's lip service legislation. It's there on the statute book, but it's rarely enforced. So, with that type of governance and that type of disinterested approach from senior government department officials, I'm talking about civil servants here, and it doesn't appear to be on the horizon of our politicians. So those are the reasons why I got the idea of forming Dog Advocacy Ireland, to finally create an awareness of the appalling negligence of dog/animal welfare in Ireland, and it must be addressed. And that's basically the reason for forming Dog Advocacy Ireland.
No, and it's brilliant. But do you think really the cruelty and neglect in Ireland is any worse, say, than in the UK, John?
Unfortunately, I do, Anna, because even though things aren't ideal in the UK, and I'm somewhat familiar, but there is a much greater adherence to dog/animal welfare in the UK. It may not be perfect, but you do have governance, and you do have administration, and there's a tendency that you do actually enforce the animal welfare protection legislation that you've got in the UK. I mean, it's all very well and good to have animal welfare protection legislation as we have in Ireland. Okay, it could be improved, some of it could be amended, but some of it is actually very good, but it's pointless if it's not enforced.
Yes, no, I appreciate that completely. I mean, at the moment in the UK, I mean, there was during the actual pandemic, for example, there was this huge fanfare of lots of new legislation that was going to be passed in Parliament, from the Renters Reform Bill to help tenants keep pets, in rented accommodation, through to the Sentience and Kept Animals Bill that was going to look at more stringent consequences for animal cruelty. I mean, it has got better in the UK, but again, it's, the whole judiciary system, I guess, it's at overload everywhere. And certainly our police force have resigned any responsibility for helping with sort of dog-to-dog cases, or, dogs being used for intimidation, even, I can't even say that word, in London parks, for example, which we're seeing more of at the moment. So, yeah, I guess there's always room for improvement, and animals deserve better, don't they, John?
You and I have spoken before about it's not our right to have a dog or a pet. It's a privilege, and if we're going to disrespect that privilege of pet ownership, well, we must be held accountable, and that's why we have animal welfare protection legislation. But again, it needs to be enforced. I don't want to give the impression here, Anna, that that dog owners, of which there are 1,040,000 dogs in Ireland. That's the dog population in Ireland. And 49% of Irish households own a dog. Now, the vast majority of those dog owners are responsible dog owners. But unfortunately, we have this horrific, unenviable reputation as puppy farm capital of Europe, and that is actually getting worse. There are hundreds of puppy farms in Ireland. We actually don't know how many, but there's in the region of 200 million euro being earned from the criminal activity of dog trafficking, both within and outside of Ireland, and mostly to the UK. So it does impact greatly on the UK and potential dog owners, or people who are interested in getting a dog. I would discourage them completely from buying online, as you would agree with, I'm sure. I would kind of call, if it's possible, to ban online sales of dogs. I'm not quite sure if that's possible, but people need to be very responsible, and I suppose there's a whole educational program needed here surrounding dog ownership and responsible dog ownership. And yes, all of those things. And you've mentioned the Sentience Bill there, Anna, and it's a great piece of legislation. I think it's probably being held up currently. And then we had Mark Abraham's Lucy's Law, which again was another great piece of legislation, but I'm not quite sure where it's at in the UK.
Well, I think the problem was, I mean, this has all been exacerbated by the pandemic. I think, the pandemic for me, it hurt dogs the most, actually, in so many ways. And, no one could go anywhere, obviously, in the pandemic. And Lucy's Law became legislation literally just after the first initial lockdown in early April of 2020. So basically, the premises of Lucy's Law, which meant that you went to visit the puppy and you made a judgment of what you saw when you got there. Could you see the mother of the puppy? You had to be quite smart about it. Were these fraudsters? Could you suss it out? And basically, Lucy's Law wanted to stop the puppy farm trafficking by cutting the supply chain once the puppies arrive in the UK, like distributors, if you like, to stop that, which would then stop the puppies coming into the UK. However, lockdown just fueled it even more by online websites coming up left, right, and centre, and people being, so used to buying everything, dare I say the word Amazon, but people think, well, this is how I buy everything, so I'm going to buy a dog like this. So yes, education so needs to happen. I feel now it's almost too late, because the problem I've got with all this is that it's the younger demographic that are buying the dogs. So the biggest surge in dog ownership is in under 34-year-olds. And sadly, because of the culture they've grown up in, they're used to just using the internet for everything. And that in itself spurs on other complications of rented accommodation, taking your dog into the office or not, hiring dog walkers, dog creches, all of these aspects, which previously, circa 2002, didn't exist, because I think it did tend to be an older demographic that would bring a dog into their life. So I think there's so much going out there that we've lost control a bit, and I think it's the price is being paid with the actual dogs. But people have been trying to stop puppy farming in Ireland for decades, John, and no one's succeeded. Why is that? Because yes, clearly you've got the legislation. Clearly, people can hopefully see that breeding dogs in big industrial farms in dreadful conditions, everyone listening knows about the dreadful conditions. They're dreadful. They shouldn't be like that. But then how can these people get licenses, John?
Yes, and similarly to what you've outlined there in terms of the COVID pandemic, dog ownership increased because of parents, and you talked about the age demographic, parents being off work, and we were all restricted to 5 kilometers or whatever it was. And schools were closed, so people went and got this lovely idea: we'll get a puppy. And then now that the pandemic is over, we're seeing in Ireland anyway, I'm not quite sure what the story is in the UK, we're seeing this abandonment of those lovely puppies that they bought on a website. And rescues and pounds are now packed to capacity with unwanted or abandoned dogs, which is pitifully shameful. And we have 237 rescue centres in Ireland, all doing Trojan work, and they are doing Trojan work. They're inundated, they're full to the brim with puppies and trying to rehome dogs, unwanted dogs or abused or mistreated dogs. So look, this has to stop. You mentioned about people trying to tackle puppy farming in Ireland previously. I'm not quite sure if there was any dedicated organisation. I've mentioned the 237 rescue centres and rehoming centres, some of whom are very big, like Dogs Trust. And I'm a huge admirer of My Lovely Horse Rescue, which is a fantastic organisation who are willing to challenge all of this stuff. And thankfully, My Lovely Horse Rescue have posted a lot of these abusive incidents on social media, have posted video clips of it, which is, it's horrible to see it, but it needs to be exposed, Anna. And
Yes,
it's only through that exposure, and I absolutely support and agree thoroughly with the aims and the policies of My Lovely Horse Rescue. The more we see this, the more appalled we should be. And Dog Advocacy Ireland, the intention is to engage with the political system, to address this appalling negligence. And as I already said at the outset, the governance of dog/animal welfare in Ireland being strewn across 3 government departments and then 31 local authorities. That has to change. Responsibility must lie with one government department which takes responsibility and is held accountable. And if we have proper administration and governance and enforcement of the legislation.
Yes, I agree. And it must happen, John. And I also agree about raising awareness of this sort of abject cruelty, really. I mean, the latest one, and I did listen to the lovely Deirdre from My Lovely Horse on an Irish radio station talking about what's been one of the latest, which, for anyone listening who doesn't know, John, explain what happened.
Which one are you referring to?
Oh, I'm referring to the power hose dog.
Right. Okay. This incident happened in Cork at a petrol station where an individual, the motorist, was power hosing his car, but he was also power hosing his dog. Now, can you believe that?
No is the answer. And, and the force of that water, as Deirdre rightly said on the interview, probably killed the dog with internal injuries because of the force of the water compared to, I think Deirdre said, compared to a normal shower, if you're just bathing your dog, I think it was 3 million times more powerful than a bathroom shower. So that's going to be pounding through the rib cage, hitting the vital organs. Absolutely despicable.
I totally agree, Anna. And to not to get technical about it, but you're right. The normal pressure of a shower used by dog groomers or most responsible dog owners would be about 45, 55 psi. The power hose that this guy was using, it has a psi of anything from 1,500 to 3,000. Along with the chemical detergents that's used in a car wash to remove tar, bird poo, paint, oil, all sorts of stuff from the body of a car. And this individual was using it on his dog.
Yeah.
This happened. Obviously, I'm agitated about this, Anna, because this is ongoing. This incident only occurred in Cork on April the 7th. And so far, this guy's car registration was clearly visible. So there should have been immediate follow-up because, as you rightly identified, the horrendous damage that this could do to this poor dog is just appalling. And it would have needed immediate veterinary examination for the poor dog. But to date, this is the 25th of April, and to date we have no update from the Irish police, the Gardaí. So, that is simply not good enough.
No. And it's these kinds of cases that I must say something like that hasn't been brought to my attention over here, You'd imagine someone would try and just say something to the bloke, I assume it was a man, which is a bit sexist of me, I suppose. But, and I don't know, try to intervene and go, listen, you can't power hose your dog. But then I suppose the risk is if you do that, they might turn the power hose on yourself.
Well, just to that, Anna, the person who took the video was the motorist immediately behind this individual who was waiting to use the power wash himself, saw what was going on, videoed the whole thing, got out of his car to intervene. As you just rightly said, any normal individual would try to put a stop to this, but the individual who was using this power hose on his dog proceeded to take a baseball bat from his car.
God, you know what I mean? I love gangster movies and everything, John. They're one of my favorite things to watch. But, I don't really ever want to be in a real life gangster movie situation. And it's a bit like that, right?
Absolutely. And the fact that there hasn't been immediate follow-up to this by the authorities, the police, the investigating police station, is just unacceptable.
Beyond unacceptable, really. But this is the whole point, isn't it, of DAI, Dog Advocacy Ireland? It's to bring, I mean, I'm sure people in government will have seen some of this on social media, because there are a lot of ministers in Ireland that are very dog friendly, dog lovers, they own dogs. So surely that must resonate to these people in Parliament.
I have followed up this incident, Anna, and we won't dwell too much on it. Let's hope we can move on from it. But it is an appalling incident. It should never have happened and must be punished. So I have brought it to the attention of the 4 parliamentary representatives for that constituency, and I've also brought it to the attention of the Secretary of the Minister for Justice in Ireland. So I'm not going to stop at that. It must be addressed.
See, this is the thing, John. I love it because I'm sure you're half bull terrier, because you've got this real passion, genuine passion to help sort this situation out. And I do think all of this needs to be outed. And, if the puppy farming situation in Ireland could be stopped, I mean, it would do so much good, not only obviously for the poor dogs suffering in these awful breeding establishments, but for dog owners as well, because one sad podcast that we recorded was all about a puppy called Reggie, who sadly came from a puppy farm, and sadly poor Reggie didn't live very long, and it broke the family's heart. And the campaign goes on, justice for Reggie, but it's really justice for all the puppies, because many of these puppies die young because they're infected already with parvovirus, and the journey coming over is pretty grim, and all the rest of it. So there's that aspect as well, that the puppy farmers in Ireland destroy human lives and almost tear families apart as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'm aware of the Justice for Reggie campaign, which of course I endorse and support. And similarly, Dog Advocacy Ireland, its aim is to address these issues. And what does Dog Advocacy Ireland hope to achieve at government level? What difference that can we make? But to engage with the political system and to lobby dog-owning, loving politicians, of whom there are quite a few. I took the bother to email all 220 members of our Parliament, and I got a positive response from 51 of them, which is huge. So, politicians are not necessarily aware of the apparent negligence that's going on in Ireland. So Dog Advocacy Ireland intends to create that awareness and to bring that awareness to the political table. And, by lobbying these dog-owning, loving politicians to empathise with the aims of Dog Advocacy Ireland, to address this crazy tree of government department governance, and to make it one government department with accountability and responsibility. And Dog Advocacy Ireland will seek an invitation to participate in our parliamentary committee system, our agriculture committee system in particular, to have our say on all of these issues at government level, at parliament level.
Yes, so it's like an all-party lobbying group, really.
Yes, and
yeah.
I don't want to get political or party political about it, but the 51 people who responded positively to my emails are across party, all party and independent. So yes, there's an empathetic group who realise, yes, we need to do something about this.
And Dog Advocacy Ireland's already got lots of supporters, so, and the more the merrier, by the way. So I hope everyone signs up. But you've got, one of my favourite vets, actually, Pete Wedderburn. He's quite a prominent Irish vet, and he's right behind Dog Advocacy Ireland. I mean, he must have seen a lot of horrific stuff firsthand, being on the front line.
And thankfully, Pete Wedderburn has now been invited to become a board member of the Irish Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, which is a very forward step by the ISPCA, and I welcome the fact that Pete Wedderburn has been included on the board. Yes, as you say, Anna, Pete Wedderburn will have seen many cases of mistreatment and abuse of dogs in Ireland. He's a voice who has a media voice. He has a weekly article on one of the Irish national newspapers, and he has a slot on national television. So it's a welcome move.
Yes, definitely. And, he's very true to his word, to be honest with you, as well. I think, he's done lots of good over the years. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big step in the right direction, John. And another aspect, of course, to look at something else, and, Ireland is quite famous for, is greyhound racing. Or shall we not open that can now? Save that for another podcast. But in a nutshell, so I couldn't believe reading many years ago about the mass graves very close to, the stadiums in Ireland, where literally hundreds of skeletons were found.
Greyhound racing in Ireland is funded from the Exchequer. And RTE did a fantastic documentary back in 2019 called Greyhounds Running for Their Lives. And that documentary exposed some of the horrific abuse and mistreatment of dogs who were, let's say, not up to speed or not good enough for the greyhound racing industry, and how they're gotten rid of. So this industry in Ireland, at least, is a dying industry. The attendances at greyhound race meetings, thankfully, is at such a low rate. Hardly anybody attends these meetings, apart from the owners and the trainers and a couple of maybe family members. People do not attend this. So it's not a sport, Anna. If you love your dog, you wouldn't put it into a race where there's a strong possibility that dog is either going to be seriously injured or killed. Don't tell me anybody who supports and engages and participates in greyhound racing love their dogs. It's not possible.
No, I agree with you. And I just think at the minute, I understand the gambling industry, is another hard nut to crack, as it were, but surely with the technology we've got now and animatronics and all that sort of thing, avatars and all these crazy things, that surely the gambling industry can still be happy if they had animatronics, but don't use real dogs. They did that for the Grand National, I think, during the pandemic. So they had a mock-up. People could still place bets, but they weren't real horses running. They were animatronics, on the screen, like a computer game, I suppose.
That's already in use, and in betting shops all over the place, in the UK and in Ireland. And especially on occasions where there may not be horse racing or greyhound racing, they use the animatronics, as you call it, to get punters to gamble. So it's already in use and has been in use for a number of years.
Well, then why do they need the real ones then?
Well, these are people who love their dogs, Anna.
Yes, really. Oh, John, yes. Well, I can't wait to stay in touch, actually, John, and definitely come over to Dublin for the first big meeting with lots of ministers all supporting, this centralisation and added control so that people don't slip through the floorboards, as it were, and create such pain and suffering for animals.
Anna, it would be a pleasure if you could come to visit us in Dublin. I'd be only too happy to invite you over whenever you might get the time. Can I just mention, Anna, what's happening with Dog Advocacy Ireland since the website has been up and running, thankfully, and there's a social media awareness. I've only made people aware through social media very recently of the existence of Dog Advocacy Ireland. And would you believe, people are very generous. Animal loving people are very generous. And I have to say that there's been a media company who has offered huge financial support to Dog Advocacy Ireland to promote Dog Advocacy Ireland with radio advertising. They're offering huge, something that I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams, that people are offering like €40,000 for radio advertising to promote Dog Advocacy Ireland and its aims. And again, not alone that, but another company came on board, a PR company have come on board with similar support for Dog Advocacy Ireland. So look, it's great to have these people on board at such an early stage of Dog Advocacy Ireland's existence. And again, there's somebody else, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a company, an individual who owns another PR company, but he has vast experience in the political lobbying arena. And this individual has offered his services free to Dog Advocacy Ireland. So there's a lot happening, and the public will hear a lot more of Dog Advocacy Ireland. If I could mention again and invite people to log on to dogadvocacyireland.ie.
Well, I can't wait to see all this unfold, and it's marvellous you've got all this support, John. It's absolutely brilliant. As I said, you're half bull terrier, and it's absolutely marvellous. So you heard it first on A Dog's Life. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you kindly.
That's our show, Mr. Binks. What did you think? Yes, the story of the power hose dog just really is unspeakable. But yes, you're right. It is time for Woof of the Week. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Never buy a puppy or a dog over the internet. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, go on, rate and review the show wherever you tune into your podcasts. It really, really does help. Thanks again, of course, to John O'Callaghan, who joined us today. And please take a look at his website, dogadvocacyireland.ie, and sign up to hopefully make some change. Thanks, of course, to Mike, my producer, for all the production and the music as ever. Find out more about Pod People at Pod People UK. And for me, I'm just at Anna Webb Dogs. What's that, Mr. Binks? You're right. We will be back in your feed next Sunday. So make it more simple and subscribe today. Then that way you'll never miss another show. Bye for now.